Hi, so welcome once again to Let's Talk with Gwen Atkinson. And I have a very special guest here today, my dear friend Vera, who is a shamanic practitioner and an energy healer. So welcome, Vera.
Good to be here.
And so I'm going to ask Vera to tell us a little bit about her practice, her energy practice and her shamanic practices. How did you get into it and what draws you to it?
What draws me to it? I suppose I got into it a very long time ago on a superficial level, where I was just using it as a tool to help me manage everyday life. What came from that was the experiences I got from it actually gave me something that helped me have a belief in something a bit more magical than the everyday.
Yeah.
So so I think now what draws me to it is it really helps me to manage situations, how I feel about the world, and myself and my future, what my future might look like. It's all comes from that work, really. So
can you tell us, because a lot of people are not very sure what shamanic means, and it's a very, very simple, there's a very simple definition to it, isn't there? So if somebody wanted to know what is a shamanic practice, what would you say it is, or give us an example?
Well, I suppose shamanism depends on what part of the world you come from. It's the practices that people had before there were religions, and the thing about it is it comes from your own personal experience. So there's not a dogma attached to it, and that's the bit that really drew me to it. It's about, what do you experience, how do you feel, what's authentic for you. So it's about also believing that everything has spirit, so that the animals, the plants, everything in nature has a spirit, and we are connected to it all. So there's something in it for me that makes me feel that I'm never alone, because I'm always connected to all of those things, and hence then connected to other human beings, although sometimes that's trickier.
Yeah, yes.
But that connection is always there, whether or not we always feel it.
And it's about holding things, honouring and understanding the sacredness of life as well.
Yeah.
So Vera and I met because we both trained as celebrants. So ritual and ceremony is very important to you, isn't it?
Yes. And I think the being in ceremony shifts things for us. I mean, I think it helps, first of all, creating some sort of a sacred space where we're almost keeping the rest of the world out. And one of the things the shamans would say is that when we're in that sacred space, that's the reality. And the rest of the world is the illusion. Yeah. Because sometimes we can feel as if we're in the real world, whereas actually there is a real world inside of us that is much more sacred.
And I really feel that we've been honoured here today by the sun, because it's like its rays, rainbow rays are shining down on us. So we're being blessed. So one other thing, because this is Let's Talk, and about the things that we don't talk about, I'm just thinking I might need to move that a little bit. The things that we don't talk about. One of the things that you're particularly interested in at the present moment, Vera, is grief counselling and talking about death and loss. Can you tell us a little bit about your interest here?
Yeah, just that I suppose I've learnt through the shamanic work that I've done about my own grief and where I hold grief, not just for myself and in losses that I've had in my life, but also grief that maybe my parents had and weren't able to express fully, and how that can carry on through the generations. And also that I sometimes can feel personally that so many bad things are happening to planet Earth, and I really feel that in my heart, and that feels like a grief. And I think I've sort of recently got involved in some stuff called grief tending, which is about how as a culture we've lost our ability to grieve together, and lots of cultures still have that tradition, and how we need to let that move through us. It's really important for it to move through us, and to do that in a group is to not be isolated in our grief, and actually if we try and be all right about things, and not let it move through us. Actually, it gets stuck somewhere and it causes disease or disease in the body. So so it's an area that I want to do more work in. So,
and it's about bringing this conversation out.
Yeah,
we were having a conversation about it last night, and we were talking about the importance of us preparing for our end of life, because if we do that, then it assists the loved ones that we leave behind, because it's a very difficult time at the point of death as well, isn't it?
And to feel like it's something that it's okay to talk about, and to be open about the things that we believe about the end of our life, because even if our loved ones don't believe the same things, hopefully they'll honour our beliefs.
Yes.
And it may also help them shift some of their thinking, because quite often we spend a lot, the things that trigger things for us sometimes are the things where we become aware of our own mortality. Well, we're all going to die. And the more aware we are of it through our whole life, the less fear it holds. And I think there's something freeing in that.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very happy to be alive, but I don't fear death. So I fear certain types of death.
Yeah, yes.
I fear having a death inflicted on me by the authorities, which are in a hospital bed with loads of medication, something like that. I fear that. I don't fear actually dying. So it's about how we can exert as much of our own influence, bring our authenticity to our own death, if you like, so that we can do it in a way that feels right for us. That may not be right for anybody else, but actually it's our death in the same way it's our life.
Yeah. So I think you're saying, it's important for us to take responsibility for how we want to see our end of days.
Yes.
So we like to give our viewers something to take away, a message of some sort that might help them around, let's say any of what we've talked about today, certainly around about death. So I think one message would be, think about it. We so avoid it. People don't want to talk about it. We don't even want to talk about our own deaths. But for me, I would suggest that even as a beginning, to just talk to yourself about how you might like to plan for your end of days. And maybe have those conversations with friends that you trust and love. Yeah.
But also to know that we've all got those fears in us, and we've all got that pain. And the bit for me as well, Gwen, is about, Mother Earth and the things that are happening to the planet. I think most people try and carry on and not think about those things too much because they're too distressing.
Yes.
Whereas if we think about them and don't let them overwhelm us, if we can do it in a supportive place together, so we know more and more people care, more and more people have these same emotions, but they're just hidden from them sometimes. To not feel that you're on your own with something is a really important thing. So, yeah.
So it's not just about our own death, the death of our planet, the species that live on the planet, and also too about acknowledging grief and loss in our lives, and it comes in so many different forms. It doesn't have to be death. I know I've kind of focused a little bit on that, but it can be the end of a marriage. It can be the loss of a job.
And quite often for people who retire, it's a loss of identity.
Yes.
Sometimes if you've been very successful in a job, or you've just done a job for a lot of years, you can identify yourself in that role, and that can feel like an enormous loss. And you have to find a new way to see yourself. And I think that's a really important thing to acknowledge as well. So,
Oh, Vera, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been delightful. She's a fabulous woman, does amazing work. Full of love. So thank you. And thank you everybody for listening and watching. And until the next time, from Let's Talk.